Program Director for the Brahma Kumaris UK and also the Brahma Kumaris representative at the United Nations Vienna. Her work with the spiritual and ethical dimensions of climate change are very uh, important because they explore the nature of harmony and connection between our inner state of being and the state of our earth. So she has explored a lot about these climate change issues as well. She's been involved in many interreligious dialogues nationally and internationally. And I must also say that she currently represents the Brahma Kumaris on the board of religious leaders of the Elijah Interfaith Institute. And there's one more organization called the Peace Pledge to Live, Loving Kindness and Compassion. Slightly tongue twisters, but she's on this Interfaith Institute of the religious leaders. So she plays a very important part. She's also a part of the strategic circle of the Spirit of Humanity Forum. And I think the last important thing, which I think is she's currently involved with that. It is a forum which is hosted by the city of Reykjavik. I think it's the capital of Iceland. This forum creates a safe space for self-exploration and dialogue among various spiritual leaders to discover new ways to move forward based on deep human values. And this is what really attracts me when it again comes to things about values. It reminds me of all the Vihasa experts. So with this, I will just now stop sharing my screen. And thank you, Sister Maureen. I know it's 5:30 in the morning in UK, but wonderful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for inviting me. And I'm very happy to be here, even at this hour, no problem. Yes, you giving the introduction. And when I look back at, we spent many, many hours in meetings. Would I call them meetings? They were really, we enjoyed ourselves very much developing the Vihasa program. And in particular, I was advising on and helping with the whole perspective of meditation and reflection. So it was a very, 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 very good experience. And it's wonderful to see how the Vihasa has really gone across the world and has served so many people in the health profession and beyond. So I feel honored to be with all of you. The subject of responsibility, obviously you've been exploring it very, very deeply. And it is something that is so important in our world today because we expect people to be responsible. And being responsible is not a small thing. It's not just about doing something. It actually involves a lot of inner preparation to be truly responsible. And there are a lot of things that are connected with responsibility, honesty, love, integrity, selflessness, many, many qualities which come together to really make a person responsible. And I saw in your, just now you were mentioning that it isn't that we should feel very heavy about being responsible. And I think this is the thing, that if the responsibility is powered by these inner qualities, then actually there isn't heaviness, there's actually lightness. And I think when I look back on my life or the things that I've done, where I've really felt lightness in fulfilling responsibility, and I think throughout my life I've always had more and more responsibility kind of piled on top of my head somehow, definitely without asking for it. And that's the thing, isn't it? You will all be aware that when you do something responsibly, then lots of other people want you to do more things for them or take on more duties. So it accumulates. But I know that I really felt good with responsibility when, one, I know that within fulfilling that responsibility, I've really been true to myself. I've really been true to my own conscience. And secondly, and this has come up in what you just shared, in doing my very best, honestly, that I can, I know that God, the divine God, will take care of the rest. And I think these are the two ways in which there can be a lightness in responsibility. But if there's any kind of selfishness that's lurking in the self, any kind of self-centeredness, then responsibility starts to become heavy. Because in fulfilling my responsibility, I begin to look to see whether others are aware or are noticing that I am fulfilling this responsibility. And are they noticing, am I fulfilling that responsibility well? So when I begin to look for that, a little bit of recognition, then I move away from being connected with my true self and being true to myself, and my motivation slightly changes. Where there's selflessness, then in fulfilling a responsibility, it's, I know what I have to do. I do that to the best of my responsibility, with honesty, with care. And I know that, well, if I've done that, then the impact on others is going to be as it should be. I am not in control of that, and that is not something that I have to be concerned about. I have to be concerned about fulfilling my responsibility very well as being given to me. And whether others recognize it or not, I need to do that with that honesty, and that sense of responsibility mustn't change if I'm not getting the recognition that I feel that I should be. And this is where Dr. Matanani, you mentioned about competitiveness and cooperation. When I'm looking for that little bit of recognition in terms of fulfilling my responsibility, then I come more into the consciousness of competition than cooperation. And of course, when I fulfill my responsibility well, definitely others are going to appreciate it. I don't even have to think about that. It will naturally happen. And then if somebody is very natural in fulfilling their responsibility, when there is that lightness, even when that praise or recognition comes to them, they said, well, I was just doing what I had to do. You know, they don't say, oh, thank you very much, it's great. No, they just, it's something, well, I did what I had to do. And that inner happiness that we receive from that is absolutely enough of a reward. We don't need other things piled on. And I've been very fortunate, as you know, to have really had a wonderful mentor who is Daddy Janki, she passed away last year at the age of 104, and many on this, in this workshop would have met her and interacted with her. And of course, I, in a sense, more or less lived with Daddy for 40 years. And what was so incredible, of course, her absolute honesty. But I know that she would never, ever ask any of us to do anything that she herself hadn't done or wouldn't do. And because of that, it engendered a trust. You trusted if she suggested something for your life, and she didn't give you orders, she would suggest, she would explain, then you trusted it and you wanted to follow it because you knew it was backed up with that absolute honesty and integrity. And whatever was inside is reflected outside. That's a spiritual law. So if I have that honesty and integrity within, then in whatever I do, I will be true to myself. And that will engender trust in others. And, you know, when I look back through my life, I'm actually very lucky that I have been with people whom I've been able to put my trust in. And I know that's not so for everybody, whether it's my parents who were always there for me. They never let me down in any sense. I can honestly say that. Whether it's in my spiritual mentors, and of course, Daddy Janki, the main one, but also others. Again, I can say they never let me down. They always have been there for me and are still there for me. So I feel very fortunate in that sense. But it also makes me feel that sense of responsibility to do that for others. So can I do my work in such a way, be with others in such a way, be in my relationships in such a way? And I'm using the word be very specifically. It's not really about doing. It's very much about the being, and then the doing comes naturally. But can I be with others in such a way that they also feel that sense of trust in me? And they won't say, oh, you let us down for this or that or the other. And I feel that that's something that gives you a lot of dignity and a lot of inner happiness, to understand how to be in the right way so that I can truly fulfill my responsibilities. And so honesty, a very, very big part of things. And honesty, as we're discussing, isn't just about telling the truth and, this is how it is, but honesty is about doing things to the very best of my ability. And if I leave something halfway, oh, well, someone else will finish it off. I know sometimes I have to finish off things other people leave, but I don't want to be in that situation where others have to finish off what I leave behind. If really I can't do something, let me be honest about it and say, I'm sorry, but I can do this much and I need to hand it over. That's okay. But if I walk away from something, then that's not being responsible. And we need that kind of honesty to do things to the best of our responsibility, best of our ability, and also to be very honest when we feel we can't do something. And I feel that's very important too. So that honesty inside, very, very, really, I feel very much a foundation of responsibility. But then along with honesty, to be responsible, and I've seen this in my own experience for myself and in working with others, I really need to care inside for what it is that I'm doing. And of course, care is, the foundation of care is love. So if I have that love inside for what I'm doing, I will naturally show care and compassion and also fairness. One of the definitions of sustainability in environmental terms, but I think it relates in everything, and I think the environment is everything anyway, affecting us in every way. But one of the definitions is that no one should be left behind. And I find that very beautiful. It doesn't matter whether they're somebody who is, of my background and culture, somebody completely different to me, somebody who's been good with me, somebody who's been bad to me or insulting, etc., etc. And we meet all sorts of challenges in life. And, I'm sure don't think that because you become a Brahma Kumari and you meditate, suddenly life's perfect and there are no challenges. Actually, because you're really trying to be true to yourself, often there are more challenges because you don't want to compromise the truth. That's a whole nother subject, isn't it? But not leaving anybody behind, having that care and attention and that loving feeling towards everyone. And that care and attention it also helps to give others a sense of dignity. I'll tell you a lovely story. In the time of the Bruges earthquake, I know that from Global Hospital, our brothers and sisters were going out to give help, give aid, and they were driving to the area. And, you know, they were particularly giving things like cooking stoves, raw materials, so that people could be a little bit self-sufficient to cook for their families and so on. Because imagine, these are people who one day have everything and the next day have to ask for a plate of food or be given a plate of food. I mean, it's you know, how much the dignity gets dented in that, and it's very difficult. And one of the sisters, when they came back, I was in Mount Abu and in Madban, and one of the sisters was talking about her experience, and she said, one of the people said to me, when you people come to us and you give us something, we don't feel that we lose our dignity. And I thought, that's so beautiful. And I thought about it, and I thought, it's about the consciousness with which that group were fulfilling their responsibility. So if I have the consciousness that, you know, let me be merciful and let me give charity, or, you know, in the sense of a donation to these poor people who don't have anything, it's not a very dignified consciousness. But if I think that the world is my family and I'm giving to my brothers and my sisters, it's very, very different. And, you know, if your brother or your sister in your family needs something, you don't sort of think it's a handout or an act of charity. It's natural to share. And I remember a beautiful little scene. My niece and nephew, they're now grown up, and one of them has her own children. But I think at that age, how a little girl was about 6, and the little boy was about 4. And I was going out with them somewhere, and it was a cold day. And the little boy must have been actually under 2, so they must have been much younger, because he couldn't, he wasn't speaking, so very young. And there was only, he had a pair of gloves and she didn't. And in his little baby language, he was offering her, da, 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 I have this one, you have that one. So he was offering her to wear one of his gloves, which wouldn't have fitted her. And he'd keep one. And I remember that scene, I was so touched. But when you're in a family, you know, you just share. That's a natural thing to do. And so this thing of, you know, in fulfilling responsibility with that care, but also with that sense of giving dignity to others. And I think that is just so, so important. So this takes us back to, again and again, the inner state of being, or the consciousness with which I'm doing something. Excuse me. And so that honesty, in fact, if I remember Daddy Janki, who I do remember her often, of course, I think most of you know her 3 mantras, her 3 Om Shantis. First, who am I? Secondly, who do I belong to? Thirdly, what is it that I have to do? And I'll come back to those in a minute. But yes, the love, the care, the honesty, the integrity, and the selflessness. And I think in fulfilling responsibility, there has to be a sense where I'm not doing things for the sake of my own self, but I'm doing things for the sake of others. If I go into any situation and, you know, I'm somebody who would always run away from conflicts, but as you gain responsibilities, you find that you have to step into difficult situations, even though you wish you were somewhere miles away, but part of your responsibility. And so I have to be selfless at that moment as much as I can. Of course, we all have our egos working somewhere along the way. But I need to be selfless and say, well, this isn't about me at this moment, but it's about having that thought, what can I do or how can I be to make this situation better, to uplift the situation? And sometimes we need to say something. Sometimes we need to do something. Sometimes we just need to be present, but present in a way that is giving very good feelings and creating a very good atmosphere. Think about the atmosphere of the world today. And I know in India, things are still very, very difficult with COVID. And, you know, every day I know we're meditating for Bharat, for Madhban in our centers around the world. But think about the atmosphere. There's and it's here too in the UK, everywhere. There's an atmosphere of fear. There's an atmosphere of sorrow, but in particular, an atmosphere of fear that is driving people. And when I see some of the decisions that are being taken, whether by our leaders or by others, what can I say? I'm not going to get into politics, of course, but you see that so many decisions are driven by fear. They will say it's driven by science, but fear is also a big motivating factor. And I think we have to be very, very careful with this, because if there is an atmosphere of fear and I get drawn into it, then I won't be able to be true to myself. I won't be able to be as loving as I would like to be, because love and fear are opposites, actually. And also, I won't be able to access the inner wisdom that is needed at that moment to fulfill my responsibility. And if in any little way, through my own being, my own presence, my own consciousness, my own connection with God, I can begin to give out a different atmosphere where I am in my surroundings and ultimately in the world. If I can spread a loving atmosphere rather than a fearful atmosphere, then that's a very, very big service. When people come to our centers, what do they comment on? The atmosphere of peace. They just want to be present there because of the atmosphere. And each of us carries an atmosphere with us. Whatever's going on inside is definitely experienced on the outside. We may think that our thoughts and feelings are hidden. They're not at all. You go into a household where there's been a lot of anger and you feel it immediately. Nobody needs to say anything. You go into a loving household and again, you feel the atmosphere. And so each of us carries an atmosphere with us according to what's happening inside. Our thoughts and our feelings create vibrations which are very, very tangible. And you'll know the experience that sometimes you're talking to somebody and they're saying very good things, but your feelings, what you're picking up, is something very different and you feel very uncomfortable. It's because what they're saying isn't reflecting what they're doing, what they're feeling, or what their consciousness is inside. There is a disconnect and there's actually therefore a dishonesty. And so I have to be very aware in terms of what I'm feeling from others, but what am I giving out myself? And so atmosphere, very, very important in fulfilling my responsibility, but also, and I do feel we have a responsibility to create a good atmosphere in the world, but also this whole thing of trying not to buy into that fear so that wisdom can work. And I believe that each of us has definitely our own deep inner wisdom. And that is part of our innate self. And if I'm to fulfill my responsibility, then in decision making, I need to have access to that deep inner wisdom. And again, I saw that in our daddies and Daddy Janki, who I was very close to. And you'd ask her a question, and often she wouldn't answer right away. She'd say, wait a moment. She'd go quiet, she'd reflect, she'd go inside. And then she would share something. And you know that one is that she was connecting with God. And so she would make sure everything was absolutely true to as God would want it. And also she was enabling God to empower or release her own inner wisdom. And she had a lot of wisdom, incredible amount of wisdom. And she didn't buy into other people's negativities, which was why she was able to use her wisdom so well. But she would say something, sometimes a very short sentence. And in the last few years, she didn't speak that much. Early days, she would speak a lot. Last few years, very little. But it was so poignant and so moving for people. Simple words. But because it was coming from that divine connection, from her wisdom, from her inner being so pure by that stage, those words had a huge, huge impact on people. And so, as I say, and then if I'm using my inner wisdom to take decisions, then actually you see the difference. When I'm taking decisions just based on my own thinking, and when I'm taking decisions based on the influence of others, then I will not be able to take decisions that everyone will be comfortable with. It's going to divide people. But when I'm accessing that inner wisdom, when I say something, do something, it's much more likely that I'll be able to take others with me because it's coming from wisdom, it's coming from honesty, it's coming from selflessness. And, I was saying how Daddy would not buy into the negativity. She did it with me, and I'd come to Daddy, something going on, and she just wait. She would just want to calm me down, and then she would want to speak to me. And but I remember one particular scene. In fact, I heard the story, and she was somewhere. She was speaking to a group of people. The room was full, and there was one woman who was in the corner, obviously very unhappy, very miserable. And Daddy, her vivacious self, as we knew her. And finally, this woman burst out and said, "What right have you to be so happy when I'm so miserable?" She was very unhappy. And Daddy paused and looked at her with a lot of love and said, "Well, if I also become unhappy, who would there be to bring you happiness?" And that statement helped to turn that woman around and uplift her and lift her mood. And so that's wisdom speaking. And yet, if Daddy had bought into her negativity, it would be, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Hope you're okay. What happened?" But that would have just been, in a sense, reinforcing the condition that she was in. But Daddy wanted to uplift her, do something totally different. Imagine. So this whole thing of wisdom and in being responsible, and in being responsible, of course, means taking decisions, and taking decisions that do affect the lives of others, decisions do affect others, and we sometimes don't know the far-reaching effects of our decisions. But in not buying into negativity, I'll be able to take a decision that will be truly beneficial. And I've had to learn that, because at first, definitely, I was the kind of person who wanted to fix everything and fix everybody's problems. Some of you may be like that. And you just get drained and exhausted, and you actually don't do any good to anybody. And then I learned bit by bit to be more detached and to understand that actually, one, I can't fix actually anybody's problems. They have to do it for themselves. And the best I can do is to provide an atmosphere. Maybe it's to listen. Often when people come to you with their problems, all you need to do is listen, and listen very benevolently. No judgment, compassionately, just be there, just listen. And then they themselves come up with their own solutions. I've seen this happen so many times. But if I'm listening to them and I'm having my own commentary going on inside, saying, I must tell them this, I must tell them that, it won't work. And they won't be able to be empowered. And it's very, in being responsible, it's very easy to make others dependent on you. But that doesn't work, and that isn't healthy. But let me empower others. And that's where the whole thing of trust comes in, because then, having empowered others with responsibility, I need to trust them. I can't do everything. And I know this has been brought up. Of course, we can't do everything. But I have to empower others and trust them. And then listen to them when they come back to me with their ideas, because they may have better ideas than me, no problem. So this whole thing of trust is really so fundamental. And of course, in being able to engender that trust in others, one is engender their trust in me. The other is putting my trust in them so that they grow and develop. So in order to do that, of course, fundamentally, I have to trust myself and I have to trust God. And so this, of course, comes back to the deep inner work that we all have to do in being responsible in this virtue or quality of responsibility. I need to do inner work to know myself well and to be able to understand my own deep inner qualities. And of course, that inner work is the work of being soul conscious, not being conscious of the role and others' response to my role. As we said earlier, is there recognition? Is there not? All of that. No, I am who I am on the inside, not the outside, because the outside will always change. Our roles will change, and we can change your name. Now you can change your gender, anything. That's all to do with the physical. But who I am is to do with me, the being inside. And that's where the work is needed. To really be true to myself, to be truly conscious of I, the soul, the being soul conscious as much as I can at every moment. And being soul conscious means being in touch with my inner qualities of peace, of love, of purity, of wisdom. And that brings me immense inner strength. And when I'm in touch with these inner qualities, then it's very natural to connect with God, the unlimited source of peace, of love, of purity, of wisdom. Where do we get these gifts from? Only from that one source. And the more that I'm connected, the more I will feel that flow of energy, the more I will feel that inner strength and courage. And, often, as I was saying, to be responsible and move into situations that perhaps you don't want to, you need courage. I've often felt I need to summon a lot of courage in the things that I do, or the power to face, or all these powers that God gives us. I've had to summon them to fulfill the responsibility. But you need huge inner strength, because you mustn't allow what you know to be right and true to be compromised by what others think or what others expect of you. And so that's where one of the biggest powers we need in being responsible is tolerance, because I can only use my inner virtues. I can only keep my connection with God when there is the power of tolerance. Because if I'm not tolerant, the minute I'm threatened, I start to compromise my values. So tolerance also very important. So many things come into responsibility. But yes, being soul conscious, being connected, and then very naturally, whatever I do will naturally be something that will be of benefit. And bit by bit, I will begin to trust myself more and more, and trust God more and more. It was just so interesting for me during COVID, our initial 3 months of lockdown. We call it a big community of 300. For India, it's tiny. But, we had to be a few of us in this big house, and then sustaining, actually not just the 300, but all across the UK, and getting things online and taking all the decisions and whatever. And Sister Genty was 4,000 miles away, and of course on the other side of the phone, but you can't be phoning every 5 minutes. And so it was just very interesting to see how I had to grow in trusting God and trusting myself and trusting others. It was a very, amazing experience, really. And this is what responsibility does. And then when there's trust, and there's trust in God and trust in the self, there is the lightness in responsibility, and my capacity expands. And then, yes, I'm able to be a more refined instrument to help my brothers and sisters around me. And I don't just mean my Brahma Kumari brothers and sisters, the world of my brothers and sisters, and nature and everything. So yes, a very important and powerful topic. Should I stop here in case there are any questions or comments?
Yeah, so wonderful sharing, Sister Maureen. Beautiful. Like, if I could just summarize a few points, it's like something you mentioned, the being and the doing aspect. We always think responsibility is more on the doing level, but as you rightly mentioned, it's about the doing aspect. And you beautifully got out how sustainability and dignity, these 2 points. Like, I remember Usha Didi sharing this once, that these people are so rich, suddenly they become so poor. And when you start giving them something, it's very difficult, because their hands have never been, it's always been giving. They have never, like a beggar sort of, never have a begging bowl, like, so they feel very odd. But this was one step ahead, as you mentioned, that when you all give them, this BK sisters give them, they don't feel that their dignity is intact. So which is again the consciousness inside with which all of us are working as soul conscious. And tolerance and trust and faith, it's a beautiful value which you mentioned. We need to have trust in God and full faith in ourselves, what we call in Hindi Nishchay. So thank you so much. And I would just request people to ask questions, because that's what Sister always said, that let us have a few question answers as well. So you all can unmute yourself and ask. I hope you all can do it. You all can do it now. Yeah. If you all have any questions, you all can ask in Hindi if you want, and then I can translate it for Sister Maureen, if that's fine.
Yeah, or I may understand, but it depends.
Oh yeah, I think you do understand Hindi as well. I heard
Not
about...
if it's too high level, but if it's simple, but it may be good to translate.
In the meantime, I have a question.
Yeah.
That can you share a few because I was discussing with Dr. Mehta, and Dr. Mehta always tells us that all the souls in UK are so fortunate that they have this sustenance of Dadi Janki, which even we didn't have it because Dadi Janki was, I mean, the majority time she was there. So, do you want to share a few experiences of Dadi Janki? I know there are many, but whatever
Many,
you,
many in which to
I know,
start,
I
where
know.
to start.
So you can share a few, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think with Daddy, as I say, she would, she was very empowering. And I think a big gift that Daddy gave to all of us, that she believed in us. And that's a very big gift. And, when you didn't know yourself and you didn't believe in yourself, Daddy believed in you. And I know she would push me to do things on the service field. And she would give me different responsibilities. But at the same time, she was always very clear when she saw I wasn't moving in the right direction. She would be very clear to tell me. And I think that was a great fortune. It wasn't always very comfortable, but she always made sure she told me. And that's helped me till today. And I'm just thinking of one exchange. And I know you'll all be aware very much about the philosophy of karma. And and this relates actually to the things I've been talking about somewhat. I asked Daddy once that, when you serve and you see that others are happy through you serving, sharing with them, and then you become happy seeing them. And is that right? And the answer was interesting. She said, yes, that's fine, that's good, but that's earning your commission. So when are you going to earn your capital? And you can't live off commission. And that really made me think. And, the capital is when I'm building up that soul conscious stage inside. I'm deepening my connection with God. And I'm really developing that self-trust, as we said. And I'm becoming strong inside. And then I'm serving. And then, yes, there's happiness, but I have the capital as well as the commission. And I just found that so, so helpful. And, she would also, and I remember once, again, talking to her about a family member that I was feeling very concerned about in my, immediate family, not the BK family, my family. And so I was speaking to her. I said, Daddy, I know it's not right, but I feel very worried about this person. And Daddy would always tell me signals, and she just signaled me. She said to me, be aware of your subtle thoughts. That was all. So I went away and I realized that she was explaining to me in that sentence, really, that it's our thoughts. When our thoughts go out towards somebody or something, we can then get connected in a way that can bring us into a kind of, bondage, to use, must be a better word to use, but we can then feel very obliged, let's say, or in a sense of bondage to that person, because we're not keeping our own sense of integrity and our own sense of self and allowing them to keep their own integrity and their own sense of self. Because now my subtle thoughts are connected to them and to their worry, to their situation and to their pain. And so I can't become someone to help relieve them of their pain, but I come into the bondage of their situation. And I thought that was very, very interesting. So there were these kind of things that Daddy said to me in my life, but also Daddy was, on the one hand, we know her as, very strong and powerful in her classes, but she also could have tremendous fun. And and she could laugh, and we would want to entertain her. And I remember once there was a senior who was visiting from India, and he was meant to go to somebody's house for a get-together and a gathering, and he got sick. And then Daddy said, okay, let's go have a party. She took a group of us, we went there, we had lots of fun. We had, she just turned the tables around. So that person who was meant to host this other senior didn't feel a thing. She had this way of taking any sorrow or disappointment or anything out of the atmosphere. And so it's like she understood human nature so deeply, and she would just pick out, what needed to be turned around. Oh gosh, so many experiences, but these are things that certainly come to mind. Yeah.
So wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Ashok Mehta. You have wanted to ask or say something? Yeah, please.
Hello. Nice to see my good friend, Dr. Ashok.
Thank you, Maureen Ben. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Maureen Ben, I've always seen working in the office, a very busy person, taking all the responsibility of the global house. So I want to ask a very simple question. How do you take so much of responsibility and still be smiling all the time?
Well, sometimes they say either you laugh or you cry, right? It's choice. But I have felt, I've really felt that God has, I just feel it's God's magic, I have to say, because I don't feel it's something that I can do on my own. And I honestly can say that as I've taken on more responsibility, I have felt lighter and lighter. And in a way, I don't know how, actually, because I just feel that it's something that God has done for me. But I think also in terms of lightness, over the years, two things: your experience grows and your confidence grows. And so your experience grows because then when you move into a situation, you've had experience of many things. So you know, in a sense, what's needed. And your confidence grows because you've seen what works. I'm talking now on the external level. There's the being level, that when I know I'm in a good stage and a good connection, everything seems easy. But there's also that aspect on a very practical level of your confidence and experience growing. And so now today, go back 20 years, and if there was a situation, I'd be, oh my goodness, what do I do? But maybe the same situation today would be, okay, all right, I know what to do, it's fine. And you can do whatever's needed. So I think it's all those things put together. I've always loved to do things with humor and laughter, because I think that's survival, and I have to say that in my life growing up, I was grown up in a household that was full of humor. And so I feel very lucky in that, but it's something that I feel people need to feel that happiness in the atmosphere. And so that often solves many, many things on its own. So thank you for the question.
Sister, I have a question.
Yeah.
While I'm practicing responsibility myself, how do I show or instill responsibility in my child?
Yeah, no, I haven't had children physically, but of course there've been many in that sense. I think one thing is I've seen, and I've seen with parents too, obviously, that to inspire responsibility, you can't force anything, but you need to trust them. And I think this is a big thing. And when I look back how my parents dealt with us, we were 3 children, they really trusted us. And because they trusted us, there was always a bottom line you wouldn't cross, because you knew they had put that trust in you and you felt that responsibility to them. So I think that's an important thing. And of course, I think children, often when things are not right, or children not behaving in the way we want them to, they need understanding. So I don't mean to preach to you, but you know, understanding, well, okay, something happened today. What was it? Are you okay? What's going on? And just that kind of loving understanding and helping a child to open up, because if a child is not behaving in a way that, you know, you feel they need to be, there must be something going on inside them that's causing them to behave like that. And I know in today's world, there's so much influence that it's very, very difficult being a parent today, more difficult than when we were children. And so, and I suppose every parent says that, but in every generation, but so there's so many influences, but I think that love and understanding, that atmosphere at home, that trust is what can turn things around. So that's my offering to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Sister, there's one question. I don't know whether the sister wants to, I'll ask on behalf of her. She sent it to me directly. So she's asking, when we do too much of our work, we feel it's our responsibility, and then we get this ego of doing that things. So how is ego and responsibility related to each other? Because then we start becoming stressed with our responsibility, that what should I do is too much, what should I do is less. So how do we deal with this ego and responsibility?
It's a very, very good question, because it is so easy for ego to come in. As we're saying, we notice how others respond to us, and that can make ego arise in us. So there's two things. One is through the recognition we get, or whatever, I can then start to say, oh, well, I've done very well, forgetting that God has made me an instrument. So that's one way in which ego comes. But also, you're right, the ego comes in a way, and I know definitely I've experienced, well, both things, but experienced this where you're doing a lot, and then you begin to think that you're the only one who can do it, and you can't stop doing. And there was, and that is also ego, and not taking care of the self. And that's something I should have brought in as well, that to be responsible, we need to take care of ourselves on the inside. And I know it's quite a while ago now, nearly, 15 years ago, maybe longer, when I got into that state where I couldn't stop doing. I was getting very depleted inside, and I got quite close to burnout, actually, and it wasn't very pleasant at all. I was very exhausted spiritually, mentally, physically. And but it was interesting. People could see this going on. But until you can be honest with yourself, others can't help you. And that was an interesting lesson, because finally I just couldn't take it anymore. And Daddy was in London, Daddy Janki, but still I couldn't even speak to her, but I wrote her a long letter. And then she called me. And then actually, she was amazing. Finally, what she did, she sent me to Madhaban, to Mount Abu for 2 weeks. And I always feel that that saved my life. She took me right out of the situation, no response. And you know, it was so interesting. Sometimes, because you're doing something unusual, going at a time when people don't go. It was July. And sometimes people say, oh, you're going, you know, a little bit of, everybody said to me, oh, go, go, go. So I must have been causing a lot of difficulty for people. I really found that really interesting. Everybody sent me with so much love because they saw that this was what I needed. And it really helped me. And so sometimes when I find myself getting into, and I know if I start to get into that wave again, it's when I can't stop doing. That's my signal. No, no, others are going to do, leave it, step back. So you need to find this balance. But this is where ego comes, when I feel I'm the only one who can do it and I have to keep doing. And so then you need to do something to put a break. Otherwise, it is a slippery slope to burnout. And nobody wants to go that far.
Fantastic, beautiful way of explaining it. So we are short of time, so in the interest of time, I won't be taking more questions. Sorry. Let me just quickly do the announcements, and then we can request Sister Maureen to make us feel very light as she is, despite taking so much of responsibility. So continuing with our episodes, Values for Life series, again, we are very fortunate. Sister Jayanti will be there with the third time with us. It's next weekend, 10th of July, Saturday, and the value is cheerfulness. We call it Harshit Mukta in Hindi. Jayanti Didi is an embodiment of cheerfulness as well. And also we are again fortunate. I always tell the speakers that you all have to give two shots in one go. Like you all can't escape with just one talk. So we are very happy that Sister Maureen is again there with us 2 weeks from now. We'll be having the workshop on cheerfulness, and again, Maureen's sister will be sharing her thoughts on cheerfulness. So we'll keep you posted. We have just come up with this all thanks to Kosha's sister. She has prepared this calendar of events, and it's beautiful to have a snapshot of what activities we are doing over the weekends. So as you can see, we are having this self-care Sundays where we do the Vihasa modules. We keep doing it recurrently. So this is since the last 1.5 years, we are doing it since last, I think, March we started, 1 year and 3-4 months. So we'll be sending you this as well. I don't want to go on this in details. And you can just email us your queries and comments on vihasaindia@gmail.com, and please feel free to visit our website www.vihasa.in. And very important, all these workshops, particularly the speaker talks like whatever Sister Maureen has spoken, so all these will be uploaded on omshanti.tk/workshop, so you can all find it even if you miss the live session. So with this, I'll stop sharing, and then we'll request now Sister Maureen to take us in the meditation mode on responsibility. Should I play some music in the background? Or?
You can, just very softly.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yes. So let me take a few moments, a little softer, the music. So let me take a few moments to go inside, to understand how I have to be in order to do with responsibility. And for this, I need to become responsible for my own inner thoughts and feelings. Let me create thoughts of my own choosing, thoughts that connect me with my true self and with God. First, I have the thought of who I truly am. I am a soul, a being of light. My seat is in the center of my forehead. And I bring all my awareness to that point. I visualize that beautiful point of light that is the self, and all other awareness fades away. And I experience my original state of peace. I am a being of peace. And in this state of peace, with a single thought, I connect the source of peace, the ocean of peace. God is unlimited in peace, in love, in wisdom. And I feel that energy of God's peace and love filling my whole being. My thoughts have changed. My feelings have become pure. And those pure feelings of love and peace reach out to create an atmosphere around me and reach out into the world. In being an instrument for these qualities. I know the doing will take care of itself. I will know what I have to do. Gradually, I return to the awareness of my body and the room around me. But at the same time, I maintain the awareness of who I am, who I belong to, and what it is I have to do. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful experience. And before I forget, Anu sister, over to you for the photograph. If I can request all the participants to, we'll just take 2 more minutes, Sister Maureen.
Okay.
If I can just request all the participants to switch on your video camera so that you all can also appear in the photograph. It will be a good memory for all of y'all. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Anu sister, over to you. Yeah.
You have to put it on the gallery.
Yeah,
You-
even you can do it.
I have to do that. Okay.
So you can see all the participants.
Hello.
So
to
everyone,
everyone.
please open the video.
Hi.
Okay, then. Now, 1, 2, 3. And the second page, once more. Smile. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we were
Thank
waiting.
you.
Thank you, Sister Maureen, so much.
Thank you.
for your
Thank
time.
you. Thanks to everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me. Om Shanti.